Welcome to the third episode of the SCPI Los Angeles City Section Baseball Podcast. Connor Morissette alongside Alex Scarr. Alex, spring break is in full effect in the Los Angeles Unified School District, but that hasn't stopped the baseball teams from playing. We've seen tournaments in San Diego, some around here. Teams are all over the place, and a lot of action to take in over the last couple weeks.
Yeah, some really good road trips, like you mentioned, Vegas, San Diego. Those are the best times. When you're on a baseball team, you get to go on the bus. Those long bus rides, that's when you really become a team. It's some of the best baseball you're probably going to play, the best kind of team atmosphere you're going to have. So some of these teams are really gelling as we head into league play. Exciting stuff.
Verdugo Hills won a tournament today, defeating Bell 3-1. Birmingham won the Blazer tournament in Las Vegas, and a game that had a ton of runs in that title game. DJ Virginia, their pitcher, DM'd me on Twitter after and said, yeah, we had no pitching that game. It was a real team effort, and somehow we came out on top. So a couple of LA City section teams making some noise in these tournaments. Let's get to the top 10, and then we'll go to some games to watch and some game balls. But starting off in the top 10, at number 10, it's Hamilton. And Alex, I know you want to talk a little bit about why they've fallen from 6 to 10 and just the criteria with how this all works.
Yeah, so Hamilton, I've talked to some of the players, the coaches. I really like the ball club. But the way that we're going to do this is if you win in city, those wins are going to count more. And the same thing if you lose against city section teams, that's going to kind of bring you down a little bit. And Hamilton, they've got a couple of tough losses. They lost to Dorsey in the Dorsey Spring Break Tournament. They also lost to Palisades, who's in this top 10. So losing in the city section and winning by, conversely, is going to really kind of bring you up or put you down. So Hamilton's still a very good ball club, and let's kind of get to them a little bit. They're 8-4. They've looked great. And they've also looked not so great. 10-0 win over Monroe last week and an 11-1 win over Linwood earlier this week. And as I mentioned, a 9-5 loss against Pally and then an 8-1 loss against Dorsey. So kind of a mixed bag here for the Yankees. They're at number 10. A couple teams just missing the top 10. Bell, as you mentioned, just losing to Verdugo Hills in that tournament. They're 11-5 on the season, and Banning, they're 8-5 on the season. So a lot of good teams here in the periphery of the top 10, but Hamilton sneaking in. They're number 10.
At 9, Cleveland. They were down in San Diego for that Lions tournament, and the story with them, they just continue to play some really, really loaded teams there. Don't have the best record because they're loaded up the schedule, but you got to tip your cap to what they're trying to do.
Yeah, so Cleveland, they're 5-8. They've had 2 tough losses, as you mentioned, in San Diego against Bonita Vista and Scripps Ranch. Our guys at the SDPI, they can tell you those are some really good ball clubs down in San Diego. But hey, they finished with back-to-back wins in that tournament, so I think that's a good way to kind of bounce back to show that, hey, we got some good ball players. We can still play some good baseball. And like you mentioned, because they're kind of running the gauntlet right now, playing some good teams, they're still in our top 10. 5-8, they got some work to do, but I think they're going to bounce back.
At number 8, Palisades. They were also in San Diego at that Lions tournament. You mentioned how they beat Hamilton a couple weeks ago, and then that second game got rained out. So right now, talking about the Western League, it looks like Palisades is the team to beat there. Yeah,
Pally, kind of a mixed bag in that Lions tournament. 2-2, they had 2 bad losses, but I watched them play Hamilton. When they hit, they really hit. I watched Benji Taylor. He almost hit a bomb. The guys kind of up and down that lineup. It's production. It's getting guys on base. It's moving them over. So Palisades, that Western League is going to be a really, really tough league. We're here at Venice High School right now. They're going to play Laces here on Tuesday. That's going to also decide who's a competitive ball club in this Western League. So all in all, a very exciting league in the LA City section.
And then at 7, it's Carson. Jaja Bellinger, the pitcher for them, has had a great season so far. They were out in Vegas in the Blazer tournament, a team who wasn't really on our radar at the beginning of the season, but they've played so well, they've snuck up on us, and they look like a very solid team right now.
Yeah, exactly. So 4-1 since our last podcast. They were in our top 10, but since then they've played even better. 4-1 wins in the Blazer Bash tournament over Palm Springs and Prairie View. They look like a real good ball club. And the Marine League is not necessarily the league you think of when you think of LA City Section baseball, but hey, Carson Colts, they're showing up.
Absolutely. At number 6, Granada Hills, they're jumping kind of out of nowhere as well. They're a team we're watching intently because, again, at the beginning of the year, they weren't really on our list, but here they are at 6.
Yeah, Granada Hills, they're 10-4, so they're playing some really good baseball, and they just finished an 8-game and 11-day stretch.
Wow.
That's a ton of baseball to play. That's a lot of stress on the pitchers.
It's like the major leagues.
Yeah, exactly. Not a lot of off days built in there, and these kids are 16, 17, 18 years old, right? These aren't 25-year-old grown men. They went 5-3 in that 8-game stretch, so it's tough when you play that many games, man. I know it's spring break, you don't have school, but even still, they're just kids. So when you can play that well, they played some really good talent in there. So Granada Hills, 10-4 on the season. That's a heck of a roll, and they're in our top, all the way climbing up to the top 5.
Staying in the West Valley League at number 5, El Camino Real. They were at San Diego. in the Lions tournament. We're still, I feel like, waiting for them to make that run, hit their stride, and now that league play is going to start up, we might see that.
Yeah, I mean, it certainly hasn't been an easy ride. They're 7-8. They went 2-2 in the Lions tournament. They lost to Torrey Pines and Helix High School. Those are the two of the biggest high schools in San Diego, so those are some really, really good teams. And things don't get easier. They play Arcadia on Tuesday. Arcadia's undefeated. They're 11-0.
Okay.
So the Conquistadors, a bit of a tough ride here early, but as you mentioned, once we get into league play, watch out for them. I think that jump that you mentioned, they're going to turn into full gear. That's coming.
Roosevelt continue to be the team really the most surprising. I know I keep saying how all these teams are surprising, but Roosevelt, I mean, they're at 4. We thought maybe these tournaments, they might slow them down a little bit, but they're continuing to play really, really well.
Yeah, they went 2-1 in that Lions tournament. They're 10-4 on the season. But one thing to watch with Roosevelt, when our first podcast came out, we talked about how well they were hitting. 77 runs, I think, in the city section up to that point. The most runs scored in the city. But they had close losses against Warren, 1-0, and Mission Bay, 3-1. So the pitching looks like it's there for the Rough Riders. If they can bring the bats like they had been and then pitch like they did there in San Diego, it's going to be a really tough team and kind of a dark horse to take that city title.
Into the top 3 at 3, Kennedy, Lions tournament, not in San Diego. They played in Anaheim, and they're just hanging around. They're a very respected team, solid team. We got them at 3.
Yeah, Kennedy, 11-5. We were kind of talking about them playing a little bit slowly, kind of playing a lot of games in a short stretch, but they went 4-1 in the Anaheim Lions tournament, wins over Santa Monica and Long Beach Wilson, some good ball clubs there. So Kennedy hitting their stride, and they're starting to really kind of click as things head into league play. Spring break, as they wind down a little bit, get some time off. They're not going to stay quiet for very long. Look forward to the Cougars the rest of the year.
Top 2, as it was, Chatsworth, Gabe Archucaro pitching really well still. They were in Vegas. They look like one of the main challengers to the number 1 team, who we'll get to in a second.
Yeah, Chatsworth, they're 9-5. As you mentioned, Gabe's pitched well. So they're really clicking on some cylinders there. 9-5 on the season. They got a big 12-2 win over Arborview in that tournament. So Chatsworth and then, our number 1 team, those are kind of going to be our 1-2 all season long. But Chatsworth, don't count them out. The most historic program in LA City. They could take this title this year.
Number 1, Birmingham. They stay atop our rankings. They won their section of the Blazer tournament in Las Vegas. Again, the pitching wasn't great in that championship game, but they ended up taking it anyway. Johnny Tincher, the catcher, great defensive player, but he's batting over 500 this year. He's just getting on base at a ridiculous rate. The pitching is held up besides that one game. They look great.
Yeah, Birmingham, they're 13-5. They're playing some really good baseball. As I mentioned, DJ Virginia's pitching really well. Albert Garcia's pitching well. Johnny Tincher's absolutely raking. They've won games 9-6, 13-12, 7-4, and 10-3. So when it's time to score runs, they can really, really hit the baseball. Like I mentioned in previous podcasts, they really know how to execute. Coach Morey gets those guys prepared every single day. And they pitch really well, pretty much better than anybody. The rotation's just about as deep, if not deeper, than any other team here in the city. So the Patriots, man, they got everything rolling for a return trip to Dodger Stadium, and we're going to see how league play unfolds for them.
I asked DJ what the key was for them to win games, take it day by day, and he said, we got to score in the first inning, and it looks like they've been able to do that. The offense is great for them.
Yeah, just get the ball rolling, right? When you put a crooked number up there in the first inning, everything is easier. The pitcher goes out on the mound, he feels easier. He doesn't feel like he's got to get every out himself. He can trust his defense, doesn't have to be too fine. So when we talk about crooked numbers, 13 runs, 7 runs, 10 runs, those are crooked numbers. Those are big deal for the Patriots. They continue to hit, they continue to pitch, and it's going to be a very dangerous team down the stretch.
Time now to take a look at some games we'll be paying attention to this week in the city section. Starting off on Tuesday, first game, we talked about it a little earlier. Undefeated Arcadia takes on El Camino Real. Should be a good one.
Yeah, Elko and Arcadia, 2 really good ball clubs. El Camino, it's at 2:30 on Tuesday, and then once we kind of see how they play against some really good competition, then they start getting into league play in the West Valley League. So one of the last tune-ups here for the Conquistadors. Arcadia is not going to be an easy opponent. So a fun one to watch, and I think really a telling game there for El Camino.
On Wednesday, we're looking at 2 games, Alhambra against Roosevelt, and then Grant at Verdugo Hills.
Yeah, Verdugo Hills, we were talking about it earlier. They just finished up winning that tournament, so that's going to be one of the fun teams we're going to want to pay a little bit of attention to. Roosevelt hosting Alhambra, one of the better city sections, or southern section teams in their area, so some good local ball club action.
Friday, 3 games on tap. Pauley at Sierra Canyon, Verdugo Hills at Kennedy. That game for city section people will have some big implications. And then another one, Birmingham against Carson. Great games.
Yeah, Pauley at Sierra Canyon. We've seen Birmingham play Sierra Canyon, playing pretty tough. Paulie's, they're 6-6 on the season, and they've played some really good teams. They're kind of one of those teams, a historic program in LA City, and if they can kind of string together some wins, we're going to see them creep up in that top 10. So a good showing against Sierra Canyon, heck, a win would be great. But show them they can play some really good baseball. We might see some Paulie Parrots in our top 10.
We've highlighted some of the top teams in the LA City section. Now let's take a look at a few of the top players. It's the game ball segment, and what we usually do is highlight some of the top players in the LA City section from the past week, but because we were off last week, we're going to give the last 2 weeks into consideration. So, Alex, I know you have a couple guys. I have a couple guys as well. Who are you shouting out this week?
Well, I've got a guy in Hamilton, Daniel Krasnick. He's the senior catcher, one of the leaders there for the Yankees. He had his third home run in a 10-0 win over Monroe. Also had 4 stakes in that game. The kid can mash. Really one of the best hitters in the city section. We shouted out Jake Levy over there at Hamilton before. So they got some really good players. Hopefully, as Western League starts ramping up, they're going to kind of bring it to play, and I'm excited to see him.
Yeah, he'll be important for Hamilton because right now they're kind of clinging to that 10 spot. If they're
a little bit, yeah.
going to stick around in our top 10, he'll be very important for them. My first game ball goes to the guy who's been mentioned the most on this podcast so far this year, I think, Johnny Tincher, the catcher for Birmingham. Get ready for a ridiculous average, folks. He's batting .574. That's not a typo. That's real. Over 500, I mean, and it's almost close to 600. So an incredible average from him. He's a catcher. He bats leadoff. 9 RBIs from that leadoff spot. He's getting the job done for the Patriots, and I think he was a big reason why they won the Blazer tournament. He's been fantastic.
Yeah, you know, you got to put the bat on the ball. Some guys, the whole revolution with the launch angle, get the ball in the air, drive the ball. I mean, that's a real thing, but those are big, strong men putting that into play. Johnny Tincher, he's a strong kid, but he just puts the bat on the ball. If it's a ground ball to shortstop, he's going to bust his butt all the way down the line, hard 90 every single time. So he's kind of proving. The launch angle revolution, maybe let's just take a bit of a grain of salt. The kid can still hit. I mean, .574, that's insane. So he's putting the bat on the ball, really hitting well, and leading those pitchers. That pitching staff really trusts him behind the dish. Johnny Tincher, and overall, as we mentioned, probably him more than anybody else. Really a fantastic player for Birmingham.
Yeah, and he got on our show the other day, so things are looking up for him. And I think the most important thing for him, forget our show, Eric Sondheimer shouted him out on Twitter.
Oh, but that's how you know you made it.
I think the kids appreciate that more than anything. So congrats, Johnny.
Good for him. I also have Eric Herrera. We mentioned Bellinger over at Carson, but Herrera, 7 innings, 1 run, 5 strikeouts in a win over Prairie View. Talked about the Colts a little bit, kind of making a surprise. They continue to pitch really well, so I'm excited to see them. I'm picking them to win the Marine League right now. I know we're not really jumping into league titles yet, but hey, that seems like an early favorite for me. And Herrera and then Bellinger over there at Carson are a really good one, too.
Yeah, Bellinger is a great pitcher and also plays quarterback for Carson, so the throwing motion is a little bit different, but, I mean, he's pitching.
Kid's an athlete.
Yeah, exactly. He's competing, and he's a great player. So Carson, again, they're the team to watch in that Marine League for sure. I agree with you. My other game ball goes to Will Kokiard from Palisades, a pitcher, 6 1/3 inning, 8 strikeouts in a 12-4 win for Palisades over Carlsbad in the San Diego Lions tournament. That's a great line, and just so many pitchers are putting up some great lines, but I wanted to shout out Kokiard this week. He's doing fantastic work for Palisades and a big reason why they're the favorite in the Western League right now.
Yeah, the Western League is going to be a little bit like the Wild West. I mean, we're here at Venice High School. Venice and Laces, they play on Tuesday, as we talked about earlier, so a lot of good games and a lot of good teams. You got Hamilton playing well. Westchester's another team that's going to give you a hard time. So Palisades, if you pitch like that, and then I watched them beat Hamilton earlier a couple weeks ago, they can hit pretty well too. So Pally, are they the favorite? I mean, maybe, you know, we see a little more body of work out of them, but a very even division, pretty much top to bottom. I'm very excited, and Will Kokiard leading the way.
That'll do it for episode 3 of the Los Angeles City Section Baseball Podcast. For Alex Scar, I am Connor Morissette. Thank you so much for tuning in. We'll see you next time.